Bank America Huntley, Bank. NBC News. The fighting in Northern Ireland grew steadily fiercer today, and most of it was done in the capital, Belfast. 5 people were shot to death there, one of them a 9-year-old boy struck by a bullet which pierced the wall of the house in which he lived. Another man was killed in a second North Ireland city. More than 1,600 British troops, 600 of them flown in from England, are trying to stop the bloodshed and burning in Belfast between Protestants and Roman Catholics, and the conflict has taken on almost the dimensions of a civil war. The greatest violence of the night, a battle of gasoline bombs and paving blocks, took place in the Falls Road section of Belfast. Catholics, most of them young men and teenage boys, advanced on streets of Protestant homes, and the Protestants came out to meet them. Police and armored cars moved in at intervals, stayed a while, then went on to other streets. At one point, some Catholics tried to drive a bulldozer toward the Protestants, using it as a shield. The Protestants threw firebombs until it burned.
Be careful there, Daddy. You're right of fire.
Housing a Catholic club was set on fire. Police, protecting firemen, fired shots into adjoining streets. One man running from the scene was shot in the back and killed. Others, including several not involved in the violence, were wounded.
Today in Belfast, there was a feeling of disbelief. Both sides, Protestants and Catholics, astonished at the destruction, at the loss of life, and each side angrily blamed the other. Police say that Catholic snipers started the shooting. Catholics point out that police, backed by special Protestant deputies, fired indiscriminately and with machine guns from armored cars directly into Catholic houses. Most of the fire damage was on the Catholic side of a clearly defined border, the same border that Irish rebels fought over nearly 50 years ago. A few Catholic families living just across the border in the Protestant area today evacuated their homes, taunted and threatened by neighbors. The firebombs, hundreds of them flying in from both sides, caused many thousands of dollars of damage in a country that can hardly afford it. Police admitted they had lost control, and they described the situation as a little war. Late in the day, the fresh troops arrived, 600 of them, and everyone agreed that only they could keep peace here. The British troops are seen as neutral. Also, the Catholics see them as proof that the government of Northern Ireland has been proven ineffective, that something new is needed. David Burrington, NBC News, Belfast.
In Londonderry, where the fighting started, there was peace today, a tenuous one, but it was peace. British troops patrolled the streets instead of the police the Roman Catholics hate so much. The people of the Bogside district went about putting out the fires that had been started, cleaning up streets littered with glass and bricks and charred planks, and the soldiers watched them carefully. In jeeps and trucks, their weapons at the ready, 300 men of the Prince of Wales' own regiment moved into the Bogside, and the Catholics, for all they wanted to see British soldiers instead of the hated constabulary, stood mute. The Bogside is a slum in the best of times, but now it looks as though it had been devastated in a war fought for a long time. Buildings have been burned, and the streets are filled with the litter of the fighting, stone and glass and wood. For the people who stood around and said nothing, all this meant another blow from the Protestants, another deprivation, another series of injustices. But not all the Bogsiders were passive. There were those who raised the Irish tricolor and were carried on the shoulders of their friends. People out of the fighting, but whose faces nevertheless showed how they felt. And finally, there were those who sang a familiar American song of resistance.
So far, Londonderry has remained calm. The British soldiers in control of a tenuous peace. Barbed wire barricades sealed off the Catholic section of Bogside. The troops in charge of all police duties. The people who live in Bogside were allowed to come and go at will. Behind the barricades, the scene was quiet but devastated. And there was an air of weariness after 2 days of brutal fighting. Londonderry was completely at peace today. Among those cleaning up the rubble of violence was the young member of Parliament, Bernadette Devlin. She was asked why her people appeared so relaxed today.
They were particularly fond of the British troops, but it meant that the police were withdrawing, and it meant that there was some kind of impartiality for a short period of time. They were replacing the police. Now, what we have at the moment is at least a lull till we find out whether the army will continue to replace the police, or whether the police, having had a good night's rest, the police will be backed by the army and the B specials. Now, our position inside this area is that no member of the Royal Ulster Constabulary comes in here. As long as the army's there, and the police are outside and the army's outside, we have no intention of attacking anybody. We never did have. It is quite evident after last night's shootings that the police force cannot be regarded by any sane individual as being a peacekeeping force. They are a bunch of armed, uniformed hooligans, defenders of the Unionist Party.
That's right.
And they are supposed to be the civil forces acting between civilian and civilian. They are the armed wing of the Unionist Party. Until we have established justice in this community, we want the Constitution suspended forthwith. I must get on with my cleaning.
The Irish Republican government in Dublin ordered 5 army hospital units and about 2,000 support troops to the northern border. They were assigned to care for wounded and homeless Catholics who fled the fighting. The medical troops set up their stations in available buildings at roadsides near the border. Their main effort went into providing shelter and food for the hundreds of women and children who came across the border.
We can supply you with accommodation for tonight.
The Huntley Brinkley Report is produced by NBC News and brought to you in color by New Newport. With a cool, smooth, more refreshing taste, today's smokers are changing to.
Notice how more people are changing their brand of cigarette, looking for a better taste, looking for something more refreshing than what they're smoking now. They're changing, but our cigarette's changing. This one has New Newport. Now a cooler tasting, smoother smoke. A more refreshing menthol taste. If you're changing, change to New Newport and taste the change.
The big thing for a gasoline company is to be there when it counts. Phillips 66 tries to be. We're now in 50 states with thousands and thousands of stations. And that fact alone says something about the kind of performance you get from us. Our gasolines are formulated for long mileage, but there's no formula for the service we give. Just straight-ahead performance.
Yes, sir. My steering feels a little funny, like something scraping up front.
Does it pull when you use your brakes?
No, it doesn't seem to.
I'll check up front.
All right, thank you.
Right. You got a branch caught behind your wheel. Gotta be okay now.
Phillips 66. Good foul weather friends all across this big country. At Phillips 66, it's performance that counts.
The Russian people today, through their newspapers, were given a lurid account of the latest Chinese-Soviet clash on the Kazakhstan-Xinjiang border. The press treatment indicated that it was a relatively small engagement involving about 100 Chinese. But then the story spoke of Red Army forces mowing down the Maoists with machine gun fire, showering the enemy with grenades, and leaving the field strewn with enemy corpses. Tension is building up in Czechoslovakia in advance of the anniversary of the Soviet invasion. The Czechoslovak defense minister today ordered the armed forces to put down any anti-Soviet protests. An anti-Soviet demonstration did occur at a cycling meet in Brno, and there were reports today of a clash between Czechoslovak and Soviet troops 2 weeks ago at Karlovy Vary. In Washington, there is continued tugging and hauling between Congress and the administration over a 1964 agreement with Thailand. Administration sources acknowledged today that the pact would place American troops under Thai command if Congress decided it was in the national interest. But Congress still has not been allowed to see the document. Enemy forces delivered 4 ground attacks today in Vietnam. American casualties have gone up to an estimated 200 dead and 800 wounded. Estimated enemy casualties include 2,200 killed. Communist forces shelled at least 41 Allied targets last night and early this morning. General Leonard Chapman, Commandant of the Marine Corps, has just returned from Vietnam. Today, he told a news conference that because of the new enemy drive, it's too soon to tell whether more Marines can be withdrawn from the country. And he also took note of the outbreaks of racial violence in the Corps.
There's no question that we've got a problem. It's a matter that we've worked on for a number of years. We strongly believe in the Marine Corps in a total lack of discrimination. And we've made what we thought was every possible effort, and successfully so, to eliminate any vestiges of discrimination. It's apparent, though, from the last few weeks, as you've mentioned, that we've not been as successful as we thought. There have been, I understand, complaints about discrimination with regard to promotions. And I'm anxious to hear about each specific complaint, and I'll have it investigated. I would have to say that each case would have to be judged on its own merits. There's absolutely no discrimination in the Marine Corps, and will not be tolerated with regard to promotions. Every Marine is judged on his own merits. In other words, he's Marine Corps green. He's neither either black or white or any other color.
Prime Minister Sato of Japan said today that the United States soon will remove its B-52 bombers from Okinawa. And he said also that the biochemical weapons on the island will also be removed as soon as some technical problems can be cleaned up. 2 shipments of deadly poison gas from the First World War moved south today toward Geismar, Louisiana, and east to Lockport, New York. Slowly, in spite of protests and delays and the refusal of the Canadian government to permit the Lockport shipment to cross its borders. The gas was sold by the Army to industrial users who intend to turn it into other things. While some say there is little danger of it giving any trouble in transit, others maintain that there is a very real possibility of an accident.
One of the 2 poison gas trains rolled into the western Chicago suburbs early this morning. The gas left the Rocky Mountain Arsenal in Colorado 2 days ago. This train was headed for a chemical company in Lockport, New York. The other had split off in St. Joseph, Missouri, and was going to a chemical company in Louisiana. The Lockport train had 14 flat cars, each loaded with 15 one-ton canisters of liquid phosgene gas. It never moved faster than 30 miles an hour. Although there had been efforts to keep the train route and arrival time secret, there were 30 pickets waiting at the Proviso freight yards near Chicago. Police were on hand, too, and there was no trouble.
No more war! No more war! No more war! No more gas!
By mid-morning, the train had moved into Indiana, passing through 20 more Chicago suburbs as well as the city of Gary. When the gas shipment reaches Lockport, New York, sometime tomorrow or Sunday, It will be used to produce insecticides and synthetic foams. A New York congressman has protested the method of the gas shipment, calling it dangerous and irresponsible. He says the containers date back to World War II, have not been inspected for 3 years, and are not equipped with gas-type protective covers. The president of the company that bought the gas says it's relatively safe.
At worst, in case of an accident, what would happen?
I don't believe anything would happen. These cylinders are very, very strong. We've dropped them off trucks. We've done things with them that certainly abused them accidentally, and nothing ever happened. So that I don't believe that anything would happen. The gas is non-inflammable. It's non-explosive. It evaporates very readily. If a cylinder was ruptured and it leaked, the gas would evaporate in the air, and it does not carry to any great distance.
I would cite in response to Mr. Vandermark the fact that you've had 3 potential disasters in recent months with the shipments where they leaked, 2 instances in Kansas City and 1 in St. Louis. The fact that they're being shipped on flatbed cars with minimal protection in terms of decontamination equipment and crews, that granted that nothing might happen. That's quite conceivable. However, I cite the possibilities here and the laxity surrounding this whole shipment.
I have a bottle of phosgene in my hand. Contains some phosgene. You can see that I don't exhibit any particular alarm in holding it. It boils very readily. Actually, it boils about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, so that when I pour some on the ground, you will see how readily it evaporates.
The second gas train, southbound, switched railroads in Memphis about noon today. 9 flat cars with 5 empty freight cars for cushioning. It is bound for Geismar, Louisiana. In the meantime, Congressman McCarthy says he's filed a protest with President Nixon over the whole episode. Bill Matney, NBC News, reporting.
Sometimes a simple headache can tie you in knots. When headache's pain and its tension puts you on the shelf, take Anacin tablets. Anacin relieves headache pain and so relaxes its tension. Within minutes, you're ready for anything. Take Anacin. Relieves headache pain and so relaxes its tension. Anacin.
Your child can play this harmonica. You can't. You have bronchial asthma. Lungs feel closed. Take Primatene. In seconds, bronchial passages clear. Lungs open up. Air rushes in and out. Primatene Mist, the fastest known relief for bronchial asthma. And now, to control and help prevent asthma attacks, take Primatene tablets with the asthma-relieving ingredients doctors prescribe most. Primatene.
The Huntley Brinkley Report continues, brought to you by Digel, the extra action antacid for more complete indigestion relief. Pleasant tasting tablets or liquid.
We pay for modern civilization with acid indigestion, gas, heartburn, tense, tight stomach. The modern solution is Digel, the extra action antacid. Digel not only neutralizes excess acid, it also has the extra action of simethicone, which breaks up bubbles of gas, helps relax tense, tight stomach. Digel, the extra action antacid, tablets or liquid.
Last spring, when the Nixon administration ordered the closing of about half of the Labor Department's Job Corps centers, there were 16,000 young men and women enrolled in the program. The Labor Department said today that more than 6,000 of them are still without training and employment assistance. Industrial production rose 0.7% in July, nearly double the monthly average during the past year. Housewives in Cocoa Beach, Florida, plan to start a meat-buying boycott tomorrow along the lines of those already underway in other communities.
The price of meat has gone up 20% in Levittown, Long Island. 2.5 weeks ago, 7 women decided that was too much, and they began organizing a boycott. Now, more than 300 others have joined them, and they claim their ranks are growing. Mrs. Lila Diamond was one of the original 7.
These people have a very, very limited amount of money, and they can't, when you go in to buy Chop Chuck, you can't afford to buy Chop Chuck. And the prices have gotten so out of hand that we just decided that en masse, people power will have to do something about it.
The boycotters have met little resistance from the average shopper. They say they're not after the small independent butcher, just the big chains. Many people who go into the supermarkets promise they will not buy meat, and they're given recipes for meatless meals.
You add red kidney beans. There's variations on it. Some people like white beans, but I kind of like the red ones because it gives color as well. You just toss it all up well. Keep working it in.
And it looks like it's fast, too, so it should be done in time for the rally.
And very economical.
Every week, the boycotters hold a rally to whip up enthusiasm for their cause.
We are not professional negotiators. We are not going to sit down with anybody now with any maximum tables. We're not going to say that when we reach this particular price, we will stop. We're not giving out any specific prices to anybody. We're professional shoppers. This is your job. This is my job. We know when the prices will be at the right level. The supermarket managers will know when we know that they're at the right level.
A spokesman for this supermarket said the boycott is hurting meat sales, but he wouldn't say how much. Prices are high, he said, but they won't come down until the wholesalers bring them down. Jim Hartz, NBC News, reporting.
Prices rose for the second straight day on the New York Stock Exchange. The Dow Jones Industrials gained more than 7.5 points. An average share of common stock went up 34 cents.
He could stand there for hours. That's his son in there. All 7 pounds, 8 ounces of him. That boy's gonna have the best. The best home, the best education, the best of everything. It's all been taken care of. His father talked with a Metropolitan Life representative. And together they took a hard look at his financial situation, his income, assets, liabilities, and plans for the new baby. Then with some important help from our electronic computer system, the Metropolitan Life man showed him just how to see that his son gets all the things he needs to make it in the world. Metropolitan Life calls this service a family security checkup. If there's a family in your future, a family security checkup will make sure there's a future for your family.
President Nixon today played golf near his summer home at San Clemente, California. In the foursome were Attorney General Mitchell, Secretary of State Rogers, and the President's son-in-law, David Eisenhower. Clifford Alexander, who was replaced as chairman of the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, today criticized the president for not taking the lead in civil rights. He spoke to a convention of Negro radio and television announcers in Washington. Dr. Philip Bleiberg, who has lived longer than anyone else with a transplanted heart, reportedly is in serious condition tonight in a Cape Town hospital. District Attorney Edmund Denise of Dukes County, Massachusetts, today went to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and was granted his request for a hearing to tell why he wants to exhume the body of Mary Jo Kopechne, the secretary killed when Senator Kennedy's car plunged into a pond off Chappaquiddick Island. Captain John Stevenson, the commander of the Australian carrier Melbourne, when it collided with the American destroyer Evans, will be court-martialed by the Australian Navy. A joint United States-Australian Board of Inquiry concluded that the destroyer Evans was primarily responsible for the collision. A military appeals court let stand the conviction of Air Force Captain Dale Noyd, who was convicted of refusing to train pilots for duty in Vietnam. Fire has burned off 50,000 acres of forest and brushland in the Alaskan tundra south of Anchorage. The fire, centered around the town of Kenai, has been burning for a week.
300 firefighters have been fighting to save the little town of Kenai from a fire believed to have been caused by careless campers. 800 of the town's 5,000 residents were evacuated, and it was feared that oil wells near the community would be ignited. So far, no lives have been lost. 5 homes in the fire's path were destroyed as it burned out of control despite the best efforts of men on the fire line. The little equipment that was available was thrown into the battle. Then a wind shift did what men and machines could not, and Kenai seems to have been saved. Heavy smoke has grounded aircraft, but officials say as long as the wind shift holds, Alaska's population centers will be safe. Jim Ruddle, NBC News, reporting.
Well, by now, it might have occurred to a lot of people that there is a crucial parallel, even a lesson, to be drawn from the fighting in Northern Ireland. It's not just a fight between Protestants and Catholics. It's a fight between a majority of fatly entrenched for hundreds of years and a minority systematically discriminated against and persecuted. And the parallel is this. The white Catholics in Ulster are the same as the blacks in the United States. They've been deprived of their rights, herded into slums, and denied jobs, hurt and slashed ever since the Battle of the Boyne. And like the blacks, they've revolted. They tried peacefully to get what was coming to them, and then they went into the streets. And like the blacks, they're burning down the very ghettos built to contain them. And like the blacks, they're being shot down. So the lesson apparently is, attention must be paid, as Willie Loman's wife said. The poor and the oppressed and the black of any color must be listened to, or they will surely go into the streets again and again and again and destroy themselves and others. And those in power, once more, will profess either to see a conspiracy or simply be surprised that it all happened. Good night for NBC News.